or the nod, the Oscars nod that this film has won. And this film has now been picked up by Netflix. What a joy, what a joy. What a great job you have done. So my name is Brandy Maslowski. I am the Quilter on Fire, and I have the absolute honor of interviewing Jenifer in the past on the podcast, but today we're going to talk about her and the film. You're going to introduce the film right away. Before we get started, I just want to say that it is an absolute pleasure for me this evening to introduce this independent filmmaker. She is incredible, and after the intros, we will have a 31-minute viewing of the film, and then after the film, we will have 30 minutes of, I will interview her for your pleasure. You will love these questions, and also you will have a chance to ask some questions as well. There are a couple microphones in the middle, so we'll be doing that as well. So Jenifer McShane is an independent filmmaker committed to using film to bridge understanding. And she chooses intensely compelling topics for her documentaries. I want to mention a few films she has created in the past that have led her to this moment. Her last critically acclaimed film was Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. It follows two Texas police officers who are diverting people away from jail and into mental health treatment. It won an Emmy for Outstanding Editing and the Jury Award for Empathy and Craft at South by Southwest. On another film, yes, absolutely. On another film, Jenifer spent 4 years visiting Bedford Hills Correctional Facility to make the film Mothers of Bedford, which reveals the impact of incarceration on jailed mothers and their children. And her first documentary, A Leap of Faith, which she co-directed, was narrated by none other than Liam Neeson. And it follows the first school year of a religiously integrated primary school in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So today, Jenifer shares with us her current documentary, The Quilters, which follows a men's quilting group in a maximum security prison in Missouri. So to introduce the film, let's welcome award-winning independent filmmaker, Jenifer McShane.
Thank you so much. I get very emotional of that. I'm much more comfortable behind the camera than up here. You may have gathered that. But this is a very, very special story, and I can't think of a better group to be sharing it with. The film has been playing at film festivals across the country all year, and at every single film festival we were at, didn't matter what part of the country we were in, Quilters would just magically show up. And I wasn't actually sure how they were even finding out about the film. It got to the point that my editing team, who were often in the audience with me, they would lean over and they'd say, "We've got quilters in the house." Because you could just sense there was a certain energy. It was kind of hard to describe. They would kind of get little things that other audiences wouldn't. And there's just a passion about art and transformation and what quilting and other types of art can do for anybody, anywhere. And this idea of having it be a healing experience as well as creative and beautiful. This was a beautiful journey for me to do this film. I just loved it, and I had the good honor of showing it recently to some of the family members of these men, and it was just beautiful to have them have a different lens in which to see their loved ones. So I'm really, really pleased to be here. I'm delighted. Thank you for showing up. And I'm going to say, as Brandy said, I'll be here after to answer some questions, which I'm really excited about. So thank you, and I'll talk to you on the other side.
So The Quilters follows the daily lives of several men spending most of its screen time inside the sewing room in a level 5 maximum security prison in a small Missouri town. As we follow several quilts from design to completion, audiences will come to know these men, witnessing their struggles, triumphs, and sense of pride as they create something beautiful in this windowless, sacred space deep within prison walls. Through this process and the relationships forged, we witness the power of art to restore an individual's view of themselves and others. I'm telling you right now, you are in the right place. together. We're gonna do a little Q&A for you guys.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, how do you guys feel? Are you glad you're here? You are in the right moment in your right spot. This is incredible. We are going to start by saying two things. I just want to say two things before we get started with the Q&A. I need to be a little closer. Okay. Okay. The first thing is you have a card in your hands, and if you don't have a card in your hands, there's cards outside as well by the quilt, and you can share, you can donate, you can share, you can be a part of this program. Also, take pictures of yourselves after this in front of those quilts and share on social media and spread the word, and tell people how moved you were by this movie.
I appreciate that.
Did they make those?
Yes, the two quilts out in the lobby were made by the men who you see in the film. Yeah.
So get close to those, feel them, feel their love. They can
And I want to
look
say
at the backing. It's coming up the escalator, going down. Look
The
at the
back,
backing.
yeah.
It's amazing.
I know, and you know what's neat about that was that that was their idea. When I went, I kind of tried to explain that I was going to be going to film festivals with the film, and they kind of sent word back and said, you know, what do you think if we sent you some quilts to travel with the film? And I thought, what a beautiful idea. So in most times when I'm able to, I've been displaying them at screenings, and especially for quilters, they really get it in a way, you know. So anyway, I'm delighted to share it with you. So thank you for being here.
Some moments, hey? I mean, I'm trying to draw my head. So good, so good. Okay, so I want to start by diving right into the heart of this film. So Jenifer, let's talk about the space you were in. It's one room, basically, so give us an idea of what it was like.
Yeah, it was interesting. My big fear was that the film would feel very claustrophobic because there's not a lot of action where you're going somewhere else, and so that was a concern of mine throughout the whole process. But actually, when I looked at the footage, I didn't feel claustrophobic. I kind of wanted to lean into what they were doing, and I really wanted to capture the beehive quality that I felt was happening in that room, where everybody was so busy all the time, but they were also very collaborative, and there was an awareness of the bigger picture that they were trying to make something and give it away. And so, interestingly enough, that last scene at the credits, the end credits, you see the quilts are being delivered to kids. That originally was a standalone scene within the body of the film. And when we showed it to some other filmmakers and editors just to get some feedback, a woman raised her hand and she said, "This is going to probably sound strange, but I don't want to leave the room." Because you know, you leave when he leaves that first time and you see him go off in the truck. In the original cut, he went and delivered the quilts. And she said, you know, I kind of just want to stay with the men. And then it occurred to me, they don't ever get to see the delivery. So it did seem kind of odd. So we decided to leave it for the end credits. And when I went to show the men the film in August, I wanted them to see it before anyone else. And I was very relieved that they loved it and appreciated it. But I think the part that possibly was the most moving for them was the being handed to the kids. And I actually still get emotional when I watch it because their response was so, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. And they kind of really were all leaning in, and I thought, gosh, they've never witnessed this before. They get occasional pictures and some thank you notes, which you see, but they don't ever actually see the joy of somebody jumping on a quilt they made. That was amazing. So.
I loved the side conversations, the banter. Were they all mic'd up throughout the movie?
They were, and that was a bit of a challenge for my sound person because we tried to mic as many as we could. So usually there were about 7 quilters mic'd at any given time, which was a nightmare at first during the edit because you just have all that going on. But it was really important because that's part of what makes it this beautiful collective. These comments you hear, you know, Fred is kind of just going bananas when he realizes his mistake, and you hear kind of Ricky saying, well, he's getting stressed out, you know. All these little comments back and forth are making fun of each other, little jabs, but also the very kind of loving collaboration where they're teaching Potter, the brand new kid who doesn't really know what he's doing. And you see Fred is really saying, good job, you're doing great. And I wanted to catch all those moments because the sense of collaboration was one of the biggest not like it was a huge surprise, but it was so impressive to see how creative and how much they were trying to help each other.
So now that we've kind of had a glimpse into the room, let's go back to the beginning. What was the spark for this idea?
Somebody sent me, there was a small story in a local Missouri news media that did a small bit on it, and somebody who had seen my film about women in prison, someone I work with regularly, sent it to me and just said, this made me think of you, or this sounds like you. And I thought, oh, for the Lord's sake, I don't even quilt.
Yes.
Which was kind of, yes, exactly, yeah, I know. No, this is true. This is one thing that's come out of this project. I am determined I'm gonna learn to quilt.
You're in the right place.
Yeah. And then when I read about it, I realized it was definitely the kind of story that I very much, now that I look back at the other films I've made, they're usually about kind of unexpected stories that are hopefully about healing and coming to a different place and maybe kind of walking in someone else's shoes that you would normally. And so for me, quilters maybe aren't thinking that much about prison, and prison isn't thinking that much about quilters, and here you have this beautiful kind of cross-pollination of these stories. And just to touch on the fact that I'm embarrassed to admit I'm not a quilter, there was a very funny moment when I was in the room with the guy sewing, and I spent a lot of time trying to observe instead of talk. I was really trying to capture their energy because it was so, enriching. But I had made some comment, and I think it was Jimmy who said, "You quilt, right?" Like it just kind of you quilt, right? And I was like mortified. I like looked at my shoes. I'm like, I don't. And they're like, you don't? And I said, I've always wanted to. It's been like an aspiration. And they launched into this wonderful kind of pep talk about how you can do it, it's not that hard. And I thought, oh gosh, okay, so I left promising them when things calmed down and if I ever got this film finished that I would try to learn. So I'm putting it out there, I'm gonna try to learn.
So you have made so many films, film after film, that have received accolades. So what is it that you really think about the personal connection with the subjects that really resonates with the viewer?
That's a good question. I think it's this idea of identifying things in somebody else, things that you know about someone you love or yourself or a struggle you've had, and seeing it on screen in kind of an unexpected place. I mentioned I made a film about women in prison. It was about mothers trying to kind of keep that connection. And so many mothers would come up to me after screenings and say, oh my gosh, I can't, there's this common denominator that as human beings, we're feeling similar emotions and challenges. And I think in every film I've done, I realize that's kind of what I'm trying to do is find a way for us to see each other in places that we don't necessarily expect. And certainly, when you say quilter, you don't usually think about men in prison, and it's not like I'm trying to say that they're different or better than any other quilter. It's just this idea of hope and purpose and creativity and art can happen in really unexpected places. And every one of those guys, many of them never thought of themselves as artistic or creative. Most of them never sewed before. So this idea that we can discover something about ourselves at any point, and it can bring us joy, serenity. When Jill talks about when I'm doing this, I'm not in here. And I think I've met enough quilters now at screenings, and they talk about this idea. And people who knit say that too. And that's why I really need to learn how to do it, because I think it is, it kind of brings you outside of your headspace in a really positive way.
So there's a moment in the film you guys remember with the list of foster kids and their birthdays where Fred realizes the child has the same birthday as him. And it sets him on a mission. So who are they making the quilts for and why?
Yeah, these, I focused on the foster care program. They've made it for they've always done things for nonprofits, for veterans, they've done a lot of other work, but they started doing the foster care program right around as COVID was ending. And somebody locally had mentioned to the man who ran that room, Joe, someone at his church had said that a lot of foster kids do not have their birthdays acknowledged. And so his church had done this little program where they kind of sent a cake mix and a thing of frosting and a candle and kind of a little generic gift to the foster home saying, like, we're making it really easy for you. Let's just acknowledge the child's gift. And they were talking to him about, and he was talking to them about the quilters, and somebody said to him, what if your guys made a birthday quilt? And it lit a fire in everybody involved. And like I said, they had been quilting before, but this took on a different energy. I think, and if anyone who knows anything about prisons knows that a lot of people sitting there have been in state or foster care. There does seem to be a correlation. So I think for the men, it really touched a chord either for themselves or for people they knew who had been in that situation. And I think for this idea that someone who feels forgotten and kind of unimportant, or were told they didn't amount to things. And a lot of these men were told they didn't amount for things most of their lives. So I think the fact that they could do something for this child, even if they never met them. So it's almost like, in my mind, it was like they were building this imaginary bridge to the outside, even though they can't physically do it. It just felt wonderful to them. And so that specific program really they're just unbelievably passionate. I mean, they're there when the door opens at 7:30, and they sew until they have to leave at 3:30. And Jimmy, we mentioned, passed away from cancer, and he was sewing until 1 week before he died. He just wouldn't stop, and he finally had to go to the hospital, and then he passed away. And the guys took it very, very hard. And so they all really commented on the fact that I mentioned that at the end, because again, it's just this idea of having some dignity, just redefining and reframing what your life was and turned into, and what it can still be. Like, there's a sense of positive legacy as well. So.
There were so many heartwarming moments in this film. One quilter was looking at a border and said, "My mom would be proud." When Chill was talking about the butterflies and his mother, so many heartwarming moments. So a really important part of this film is art as transformation and healing. So why did you make this film?
I think because I believe that in my own work, I find it, I had a very, very significant loss in my life as I was making this film, and was pretty shattered by it. And making this film was very healing. It's not why I made the film, but it was an interesting parallel for me to be working on this at that time, because I think these men, for various reasons, a lot of guilt, Ricky makes a really important point about forgiving yourself and how hard that is, and acknowledging it and finding a way to have some purpose and to do something positive. So I think in all my projects, I like to find something that's hopeful that we can take out of these things and move forward, because we just live in a very harsh, polarized existence sometimes, and I think if we can find these shared commonality, and art, I think, is one of those things. So yeah, I'm very glad I made it, and I'm really glad that quilters respond well, as you guys get it. Like, just their moments, like I said, in screenings, they're like, okay, quilters are in the house. It's good.
So before we get into the goals of this film, because I know you have some clear goals, I want to open it up to the audience if you guys have any questions. So feel free to stand up. There's actually microphones in the middle if you can scooch over. You can,
okay, so much.
My question is, the guys that get caught and get in trouble and get pulled out of the program, do they get a chance to come back into the program, or is it when you're gone, you're gone?
Yeah.
Can I repeat that?
Yeah, I can repeat the question. She was saying, when if a man gets kicked out of the program, like you see with Fred, are they ever allowed back in? I wish I could say yes. So far, Fred has not been allowed back in. He was allowed to come watch the film when I showed it, which I think he found very healing, because I think he's pretty devastated that he made that mistake. I wish they would change their mind about it. I know Ricky's trying. So yeah, the jury's out on that, I think. So occasionally they're allowed back in, but that was considered very serious, even though he really was just working on clothes. He wasn't doing anything. Anyway, yeah, we're pretty good at the punitive piece of it. A little harder on the rehab part of it, I'm afraid. But
Any other questions?
So I'm wondering, is the mic on? I was
Yeah.
glancing back at a friend of mine, and I was trying to explain my son and his story. My son served in the nuclear military. He's a nuke engineer in the military. He's in prison, like the men that are in prison. He went through an emotional problem like the men in prison. He is not in prison. He needs that healing that you bring that you have shown through your expose on these men. We need to understand that men, as well as women, need that healing.
Yeah.
So my son, I'm very proud to say, has found sewing. And he is making bags. He is using a Singer 301. Who's used that? We got two. He's got one with 40 weight, one with 60 weight. My son has found sewing and creating projects as his way of healing for what he did for the nuclear Navy. He gave his soul. He was very injured by that, and he has found sewing as a way to heal his soul. And when we look at your movie and what has been presented to us, we all know as women that we find a way to heal ourselves, whether it's our kids, our relationships. We sit down in front of a sewing machine and we can kind of heal our way through that. The honor of having my son find that solace, that hurt. That's why I had to walk all the way up here and say to you, my son has found that. And that is really, really important.
I'm so glad you made this point, because it is a comment I make almost in every Q&A, that this idea of masculinity, what it means, how we heal ourselves, how we emote, how we learn to heal and use art. And sometimes I think for men it's not encouraged. And I'm so happy to hear that he has, and that these men have as well.
We need to encourage men to find that solace.
I agree.
And to find that way. You know that when we sit in front of that sewing machine, okay, shop owners, we all know, right? We don't get to do that a lot. We need to heal ourselves. We need to share that healing with our children. Children that may not know that they need that needle and thread.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very, very important. So thank you for your, and prison is not only prison.
No,
Prison is what everyone has been through. We got to understand that. We got to go to it. We got to make our children, our friends, people that we see in our community.
Yeah.
We need to give to that.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We didn't make this for short people. So I reached out to my local prison a couple years ago to see if I could get something similar going. And the response was, oh, we can't have sewing machines, and we definitely can't have the cutting materials.
Right.
Not an option.
Right.
Which now I know it's possible, so
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
I know, it's one of my goals.
Yeah, so now I know it's out there, so I gotta figure out how to get. They do crochet though, so you can bring your crochet hook and crochet. But
These guys crochet as well.
yeah, so how? I mean, do you know how that got started, or how long it's been
In this
going?
particular case, it was the wife of the chaplain came in. He was meeting with some people, and much to the previous woman's comments, they were talking about some kind of stress and difficulty emotionally they were having, and she just said, kind of offhandedly, would you ever want to learn how to sew? And to her surprise, which I think is what is interesting, we assume it's not going to be a yes, and they all were like yes. So she came in and started teaching it, and then it kind of just grew on itself, and now it's become kind of a program that people aspire to, and it's kind of like an honor program. But I just met a woman before the screening who's doing amazing work like this with prisons in Indiana. And my hope, I'm working really hard, the postcards I gave you tells you about the Missouri prisons, how to donate there. But my goal is to, once the film is more available, to kind of create a database so people can find out who's doing something similar, who could use some support to grow it. And what I'm hoping is I'm showing this film to the Correction Leaders Association, because I want every prison and every prison leaders to see the film and realize what's possible. Because when they see peers doing it, they're like, wait a minute, maybe we are, kind of looking at it sideways. And these places,
So I need to know someone on the inside to get inside.
Yeah, and I know, and we are really, if you follow, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but we are on Instagram and Facebook and whatever. So we're gonna be putting out as much as we can as we learn more, because I'm literally on like a learning tour to figure out. Right now I have 5 prisons that are gonna be showing the film. And I showed it at San Quentin, and a bunch of young guys came up to me and said, how can we do this? And one of them kind of admitted secretly that he crocheted, and like this idea of kind of, and it was beautiful, it was great, and they want to do it, and it's creative, and why not? And so I'm fully with you. So the best advice I could say right now, because I know most prisons say no first, but I'm really I'm on a mission, and this Correction Leaders Association is going to be state representatives for most of the states, so, and they're going to sit and watch this film. So I really, if you keep checking back, because it's the only way I have to communicate with everybody is through, it's the Quilter doc, the Quilters doc on Instagram and Facebook. So we're going to be putting out information as soon as we can. And the postcard will tell you how to donate if you're near Missouri. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Give them a link to the.
So we're gonna get back into the interview, and we'll have some more time for questions.
Just one.
Oh, do you want to do?
Yeah, she's up.
Yeah, let's do one more, because you're standing, so let's do that. We'll do one more question now, then we'll get back into a few more interview questions.
Have you ever looked at the Angola prison in Louisiana? They have a huge craft program.
Oh, yeah.
I've been there for the craft fairs and sales, and
It's
I've
amazing.
purchased.
It's amazing. And also, I know a group, I honestly do make films that are not just about prison, but there's a group of midwives that are helping prisoners down in Alabama. There's amazing stuff happening. So when there's a will, there's a way. But yes, I am familiar with it. It's incredible. Yeah. It's amazing.
Okay, so I'm going to read a previous answer that Jenifer gave me on the podcast while you run and get your phone, because at the end, we're going to do a photo.
Do you mind if we do a quick group photo?
We're going to do it at the end, but go run and get your phone now.
Okay,
I'm going to
okay.
read a statement.
Just putting me to work.
This is an answer Jenifer gave me on the podcast. Almost all of the men in this film have never sewed before entering the room. Learning a new skill at an advanced age and creating something beautiful is a new discovery. It is also a healing discovery, not only because they realize that they are able to make something beautiful, but they are giving it away to someone that they will literally never meet. It's also had massive benefits to their own sense of self and mental health. As Chill says, when I am doing this, his quilting, I am not even in here. Their work may not be hanging in museums, but it will be gifted to someone who may feel forgotten and alone. The whole act, from design to sewing to giving it away, is transformative. This was her answer on the podcast, I'm telling you. It was amazing. So I want to go into a couple more questions. We have a bit of time left. So do you guys want to go to the photo first in case you have to sneak out?
Well, I just want everyone to wave. It's just for my team.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do a wave and we'll have a couple more
Because
questions.
they're like going to be very excited this many quilters saw. Okay, stand back. Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know. What do quilters say? Quilters?
Seam Ripper!
Hi, guys.
Best friends with our seniors.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is the goal moving forward with this film? What are you wishing that this amazing group of quilters will step out of this room and do? What's the goal?
Well, I want it to be seen in every prison possible. And there's already a list that are waiting for that. I want local quilters and creators, not just quilters, creators, I should say, to know that community, to see if they can kind of inform each other. And I want us all to think a little more creatively about how we heal ourselves. So those would be the number one things. And if I can get a database so that more people across the country are aware of places where they can support these kind of things, the better. So.
Is there a moment in the film that is most memorable for you as the filmmaker?
I think when they get the thank you card, when Chill realizes that they've gotten the quilts, that was amazing. And I actually had to cut it. It was a much longer scene, but I just had to cut it. But Ricky takes that thank you card and brings it to every single guy. And it was just too long, so I had to shorten it. But it was that meaningful. Like every single sewing room, they'd stop and read it, and then everything gets hung up on. So this kind of a quick thank you note has just a tremendous value. So that was very powerful.
So this film has had an Oscar nod. It was shortlisted to the top 15.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Thank
How did
you.
that make you feel?
Great, no, it was great. It was pretty. It was
It was all right.
It was pretty nice. It was pretty nice. Because you make the film for a long time by yourself in a way. Like not really by yourself. I mean, I have people help me, but it's in your head a lot. I say it's kind of like you're doing a jigsaw puzzle where you've got like too many pieces, but the picture on the box is where you think you're going. And so then when it's out in the world and you realize people are responding, it's great. And then having your peers kind of respect it. So it was lovely. It was great.
And of course, the big news is that it's out on Netflix.
Yeah, so
Congratulations for that.
I really want to give a shout out for watch parties. If you want to get a quilted group together, a quilting guild, to watch it in community, just because I think it was interesting. Chill's sister, I sent her the film because I really wanted the families to see it in advance. I didn't want them to feel sidelined when it was on Netflix. And she wrote me this beautiful email back about how her whole family watched it together and had all these conversations about Chill being there that they never really had before. But oddly, and they're living it, I'm not, but somehow this allowed them to have all these great conversations about their mom and the butterflies and his whole rebirth, which he talks about, his family sensing a difference in his voice when they talk to him. And she has a 9-year-old daughter who has never met her uncle, because he's embarrassed to have her come to the prison. He doesn't really encourage the visits. Anyway, this young girl is looking at this man who's making beautiful things for kids. And it was just a wonderful way for Chill's sister to kind of talk about her brother and what had happened. And anyway, it's a long way of saying that I love the idea of kind of quilters or any groups watching it together. I just think it's a nice kind of opportunity to do that. And I was saying my films are kind of like my children, like I can talk nonstop about them, so sorry.
This room is full of business owners, quilters, makers, influencers, people in the industry. So I really encourage you to go back to your home and write a newsletter, write on your blog, write on your social media, tell people how you felt, encourage them to watch it, spread the word about it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, share this independent film with your communities, right? Jenifer, it has been such a pleasure to share this film. Congratulations on the accolades it has received. We wish you many more. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you showing up.
Really great.
Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of the show, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Please come and meet Jenifer.